This is a steal for the Steelers as they add another piece to their offense. My name is Peyton Kleppe, and on today's episode of Steelers Digest, we'll be breaking down the latest Pittsburgh Steelers news and reports as they add another running back to their stacked running back room going into next season. Before we get into the latest news, just click that subscribe button down below if you guys have not already. 91% of our current viewers are not already currently subscribed. So if you click that subscribe button, we're going to get you guys the latest reports and news about the Pittsburgh Steelers. Let's get right into the news. So like I said, the Pittsburgh Steelers have made a pretty shocking selection by passing up on Shedeur Sanders 2 times and selecting Caleb Johnson out of Iowa. You know, this is a guy that I did not expect the Pittsburgh Steelers to be able to pick, but, you know, he is a stud. This guy had over 1,000 yards after contact last year at Iowa. He had over, I believe, like 1,600 rushing yards, so he's going to add an impact to our offense, and, you know, we really needed a guy like Caleb Johnson because, you know, the loss of Najee Harris was very tough for us. You know, he was our bell running back for the last couple years, past 4 years. You know, his rookie year was Big Ben's last year back in 2021. So, you know, Najee was a fan favorite and he was liked by a lot of people in the Steelers organization. But obviously last year he had some ups and downs. And, you know, he really was a guy that he's kind of interchangeable. I don't want to put him down, but, you know, he was getting up there in age and he was not making too many great plays anymore. He was like 27 now. So Pittsburgh Steelers said farewell in the offseason, and they brought in some other pieces alongside Jaylen Warren, who's probably going to be our number one running back going into next season. But I really like this pick. Like I said, this guy has been compared to Derrick Henry. He's not as big. He's like 6'2", about over 220 pounds. But he runs pretty good. And, you know, after contact, 1,000 yards, that's pretty crazy. Like I said, Najee Harris was a guy that he really wasn't breaking too many tackles. He would get stopped a lot at the line or behind the line of scrimmage. Just the way he ran really did not fit our offense. Our offensive line really didn't help him out. But his running style did not really fit us. So we really needed some bursts coming out of the backfield. You know, Jaylen Warren definitely provided that in the past. And obviously we still need some other pieces on the offense, including quarterback. But I'm really hoping Aaron Rodgers will sign with the Pittsburgh Steelers in the next couple of days. It has been linked that he will be signing after this long offseason of waiting. Aaron Rodgers believes that Pittsburgh is, you know, probably the best place for him. We added a ton of weapons on defense and offense. So, you know, why wouldn't you want to come to Pittsburgh? We got a great offense, great offensive mind, great head coach, great owner, great organization, best fans in the world. But back to Caleb Johnson. You know, this is a guy that could catch out of the backfield. He's a downhill running back, and he's very good, you know, with that burst. And that's what we needed. Like I said, Najee Harris would always get stuffed at the line, and he wasn't a guy that was breaking a lot of tackles. I think he only had like something crazy, like only like 30-something yards after contact last year. So bringing in a guy like Caleb Johnson in the 3rd round after not having a 2nd-round pick is kind of shocking for me as a Steelers fan. Also because we did not select a quarterback. I was expecting Steelers to get a guy like Shedeur Sanders, who's still on the board after night 2, after the 2nd and 3rd round. He has not been taken as of now. But like I said, the Steelers passed on him. They passed on Jalen Milroe, who ended up going to the Seahawks. And obviously, Tyler Show went to the Saints earlier in the 2nd round, I believe, which was kind of crazy, kind of surprising. And, you know, Shedeur Sanders is still on the board. So if he is there next tomorrow when the Pittsburgh Steelers pick, he could be coming to Pittsburgh, or we could be waiting out and getting a guy like Will Howard, or getting a guy like Quinn Ewers, who at one point was a Heisman candidate. So I think the Pittsburgh Steelers are in a pretty good position after making this pick tonight. You know, we made some smart picks, not some flashy picks, but definitely picks we needed. In the 1st round, we went to defensive line, which we desperately needed. A lot of fans really was pushing that to the side, but obviously we let up like close to 200-300 yards rushing on the Ravens last game of the season. In that playoff game matchup where Derrick Henry ran all over the field on us, as well as Lamar Jackson and all those guys down in Baltimore. But, you know, the Pittsburgh Steelers look to regroup. We got a D lineman in the 1st round who's going to solidify that D line. And, you know, now we pick up a running back in the 3rd round who is going to just add to that running back room of guys like Jalen Warren and some of those other guys. But if we look at his stats throughout this year, Caleb Johnson, last year he did have over 1,500 rushing yards. He added 21 touchdowns to that. That's very impressive. That another thing the Pittsburgh Steelers have been missing out on in the past couple years is having one of those downhill running backs at the goal line. We've kind of been getting stuffed at the goal line the last couple years. Our red zone offense has not been the best. So bringing in a guy like Caleb Johnson would definitely help that out. Add a guy that has that burst, that downhill running style. And like I said, he's also like 6'2", 220. So, this guy is kind of like a Le'Veon Bell kind of build. I don't want to give him that much praise yet. It's still very early. The guy just got drafted an hour or two ago. But, some people are already comparing him to Le'Veon Bell. I believe Arthur Moats on his podcast, I was listening to him earlier. He said this is kind of like a Le'Veon Bell pick. So, shout out Arthur Moats. But I really hope that the Pittsburgh Steelers could develop him into a guy that could play like Le'Veon Bell, not Le'Veon Bell as a person. Obviously, he's had some personal issues like Antonio Brown. But, Caleb Johnson, this is a guy that, look, he had over 1,700 yards from scrimmage. He had 23 total touchdowns his senior year. And, he's still a young guy. He's got young legs, and that's what we needed. Najee Harris was already going into his fourth year in the league. He was turning 27, and, he was not going to get any faster. He was not going to do anything better than he's already done. I believe his rookie year was sadly his ceiling when he had over 1,200 rushing yards. And now he goes to the Chargers, who draft a guy out of North Carolina in Omar and Hampton, who, they're probably going to go running back committee like they did last year with Dobbins and Gus Edwards, just do a similar style. And Najee will definitely not get the similar carries that he had gotten in Pittsburgh. So, Najee, sometimes the grass ain't greener on the other side. On your way out, you're definitely throwing some jabs at the Pittsburgh Steelers. So that is all I have to say to you. I liked you coming out of college, but hey, buddy, sorry, we just drafted your replacement who may be 10 times better than you. Like I said, Caleb Johnson, I really like him, but, we're adding him to a running back room that is already has some talent, some untapped potential in a guy like Jalen Warren, who he has never really had that starting position solidified. Like I said, Najee Harris really held it down in at that running back number one position, even when Warren was playing better than him, debatably. Najee Harris was a guy we picked in the first round, so we obviously had him starting, and Jalen Warren kind of emerged under Najee Harris. You'd have him in on second and third down, and he was more of just a flashy player who we would bring in, and he really embraced that role, and now the Pittsburgh Steelers are giving him that opportunity to take over that running back number one position. But adding a guy like Caleb Johnson is really going to help the Pittsburgh Steelers in many different ways. And I do expect the Pittsburgh Steelers to select the quarterback with their next pick. If not, then they will go with Aaron Rodgers. I do expect him to come to Pittsburgh. All signs are leading to it. That is all I have for you guys tonight on Steelers Digest. Thank you so much. If you guys are not currently subscribed, click that subscribe button. Thank you so much. Here we go, Steelers. Peace out, boys.